from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd. A good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. A hired man who is not a shepherd and whose sheep are not his own sees a wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away, and the wolf catches and scatters them. This is because he works for pay and has no concern for the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know mine, and mine know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I will lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. These also I must lead, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock, one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life in order to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have power to lay it down and power to take it up again. This command I have received from my Father." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Someone once asked Pope John the 23rd, "How many people work in the Vatican?" And he replied, "About half." On a more serious note, St. Gregory the Great preached in a sermon, "Look about you and see how full the world is of priests. Yet in God's harvest, a laborer is rarely to be found. For although we have accepted the priestly office, we do not fulfill its demands." Wow. The 21st century is not unique. There have always been bad shepherds in the church. We've all heard the expression, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions." That's the way we've heard it. But apparently, the original quote is attributed to St. John Chrysostom, 1600 years ago. "The road to hell is paved with tonsured skulls of bishops and priests." Tonsure is that little removal of the lock of hair that puts you into the clerical state. We don't do it that way anymore, but that's the way it was before 1968, I believe. When shepherds lose their way, it's much easier for the flock to go astray. And that's why bishops and priests stand in constant need of the prayers of God's flock. On Good Shepherd Sunday, when we are asked to pray for an increase in vocations, this is the World Day of Prayer for Vocations, the 58th anniversary. On this day, it's good to recall the priests, the deacons, the brothers and sisters religious who have made a difference in our lives. So I think of Father Pierre Conway, a Dominican priest who lived his last years at the Dominican House of Studies on the other side of town. Even into his 90s, he took care of every beggar that came to the door. As a young priest, he rode a motorcycle in New York City. This was in the 1940s, and he worked alongside Dorothy Day at the very beginning of the Catholic worker movement. When Father Pierre died, his body was donated, according to his will, to Georgetown University for research. On Good Shepherd Sunday, I think of Sister Mary Immaculata, a cloistered nun who lived to be 94, and she suffered her whole life from the debilitating effects of having had polio when she was a little girl. She had a rather bad limp, needing lots of surgeries in her legs, and yet she was the organist for the monastery. Now, without my knowledge, when I was a college student, I was entrusting my vocation discernment to a diocesan priest. And again, without my knowledge, he asked Sister Mary Immaculata to pray for me and to pray for my vocation. Well, it turns out that Sister Mary Immaculata was a Dominican cloistered nun. And need I say more? She and I became great prayer partners up until her death. So I encourage you, take a moment today, thank God for the priest, the deacon, the religious brother or sister who changed your life for the better. And while you're at it, pray for vocations. A few years ago, I received an insight into my own vocation as a Dominican preacher. I was walking along in my white Dominican robe when all of a sudden, a black and white border collie came out of nowhere and started running wide circles around me, barking up a big storm. Scared me half to death. As I got closer to the doors of the church, the dog's circles were closing in on me. And at the last second, the owner came into view. I said, "That's some dog. Did you teach it how to do that?" He laughed and said, "It's a sheepdog. It thinks you're a big white sheep." Well, the role of a Dominican preacher is to be that black and white dog, running circles around God's flock, barking out the truth, making sure that everyone stays together in the fold. In the Middle Ages, Dominicans were nicknamed the dogs of the Lord. Dante refers to us this way. And it's a play on words. If you take the Latin word Dominicanes and you break it into half, into its two components, it becomes Domine Canes, literally, Lord's dogs. See, so a little play on words. But Isaiah says that the false prophets are like dumb dogs who cannot bark. Well, the problem with us Dominicans is that we bark too much. And that means we do not follow the rule of St. Francis, who said, "Preach the gospel at all times, if necessary, use words." We use a lot of words, we Dominicans. The good news for Good Shepherd Sunday is that our salvation is not all up to us. If we could bring ourselves to heaven, we wouldn't need Jesus. Our Catholic faith teaches quite clearly that anyone who does reach heaven, be it a Christian, a Jew, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Buddhist, or even a non-believer, it's entirely due to Jesus Christ, whether that person knew it on earth or not. There is no other name under heaven given to the human race by which we are to be saved. That was true in the first century. It's still true in the 21st century. If it isn't, we might as well pack up and go home because we're wasting our time here. So, let's beseech the Lord Jesus today to send to his church good, holy laborers to gather in the harvest and to keep the flock together. Let's stand now and profess our faith. I believe in one